أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم, picking up with the legendary military ideology of the Prophet Muhammad salawatullahi ta'ala alayhi. This is the era of Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, and this is your humble and respectful orator Muhammad Israel. We're picking up on page number 238. This is volume 2 instead of volume 1. And we were discussing the various publications by the Shia Rafidis to help confuse people and to lead them somewhat into that in which is their agenda. So we were arriving in reference to the book Nahjul Balagha, very popular book in the Shia school of thought. But let's start off with the second paragraph where Ibn Taymiyyah said, open quote, "The scholars know that most of the speeches in this book are fabricated and falsely attributed to Imam Ali radiallahu anhu, since we do not find most of it in earlier books and it has no known chain of transmission." Ibn Hajar accuses Al-Sharif al-Murtadi of fabricating it and says, open quote, "The one who studies it will be certain that it is falsely attributed to Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, and most of it is false. Based on the end quote, based on the above comments and others, a number of researchers discussed this topic and said that this book cannot be soundly attributed to Imam al-Faqir Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. We may note that some of the most important reasons why the early and modern scholars doubted the attribution of Nahjul Balagha to Imam Ali. Number one, it is devoid of documented chain of narration that would support the attribution of its words to Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. Two, it contains a large number of lengthy speeches which would have been difficult to memorize without getting mixed up at the time before the era of compiling and writing things down. Even the speeches of the Messenger of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu have not reached us in complete form despite the great deal of care and attention given to them. Number three, we can see many of its statements and speeches in trustworthy sources where they are attributed to someone other than Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, but the author of Nahjul Balagha attributes them to him. Number four, this book contains words that criticize the righteously guided Khalifas who preceded Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu in a manner that is not befitting him or them. These words contradict what is known about Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib's respect for them. One example is the report of the speech known as Shaqshaqiyya, in which his keenness to become Khalif is demonstrated, even though he was known to be an ascetic who cared little about worldly matters. Number five, the prevalence of rhymed prose in the book. The prevalence of rhymed prose in the book. A number of literary critics think that so much rhymed prose or rhymed prose is rhymed. Okay, sorry about that. Prose is not in accordance with the spirit of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu's era, when people sought to avoid overdoing things, even though the kind of rhymed prose that comes without much effort was not far removed from the spirit of that time. Number six, writing in a very ornate manner, which is a demonstration of literary ability. This is a feature of the Abbasid era with its love of flowery speech, such as we find in the description of peacocks, bats, bees, ants, plants, clouds, and so on. Number 7, the philosophical style that is scattered throughout the book was unknown to the Muslimin until the 3rd century AH, when Greek, Persian, and Indian books were translated. This is more like the words of the philosophers and orators than the words of the companions and righteous, more than the words of the companions and righteously guided caliphs. We should be aware, or we should beware of this book when talking about the companions and what happened between them and Amirul Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. We should measure its text against the Quran and Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. Whatever is in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah, there is nothing wrong with referring to it. But whatever is contrary to them, we should pay no attention to it. Moving along now to page number 240. Al-Aghani by Al-Isfahani. The book Al-Aghani by Abu al-Faraj al-Isfahani is regarded as a book of literature, entertainment, and poetry that is to be sung. It is not a book of knowledge, history, and Islamic jurisprudence. It is very famous in the realm of literature and history, but that does not mean that we should keep quiet about what is mentioned in it of Ubiya, fabrication, blatant lies, slander, and criticism. The Iraqi poet Professor Walid al-Adhami has written a valuable book called As-Sayf al-Yamani fi Nahr al-Isfahani Sahib al-Aghnani, in which he makes a serious effort to distinguish between what is rubbish and what may be accepted, what is poison and what is honey. He highlights what the book contains of lies, inflammatory, shu'ubiyya, and hatred, which seethes in the heart like a boiling cauldron. He refutes the false and unauthenticated reports that Al-Isfahani compiled, which undermine the people of the Prophet's of the Prophet alayhi salawatullahi ta'ala alayhi's household, and distort their history and their image. He also discusses the false claims made by Al-Isfahani with regard to Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan and the Umayyad rightly guided caliphs, as well as the report that are fabricated and falsely attributed to them. In this valuable book, the great scholar and poet Professor Walid al-Adhami also discusses other kinds of falsehood, including the fabricated stories that undermine Islamic belief and religion and give precedence to ignorance over al-Islam. The early scholars commented on Abu al-Faraj al-Isfahani. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi said Abu al-Faraj al-Isfahani was the worst of liars. He used to buy a lot of worthless books, then all that he wrote was based on them. Ibn al-Jawzi said the reports of such a man cannot be trusted, and you will find in his books evidence to prove that he is an evildoer. He encourages the drinking of alcohol and may even attribute that to himself. The one who studies the book Al-Aghani will see all kinds of evils. Ad-Dahabi said, open quote, I saw our Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah classifying him as weak, criticizing him with regard to his reports, and finding what was in his book outrageous, end quote. 3.7.4 Tarikh al-Yaqubi. The author's full name is Ahmed ibn Abi Yaqubi Ishaq ibn Ja'far ibn Wahb ibn Wa'adi. He was from Baghdad and he died in the year 290 after the Hijriya. He was an Imami Shia historian who worked as a scribe in the ministries of the Abbasid state. So he was known as the Abbasid scribe. Al-Yaqubi presented the history of the Islamic State from the purely Imami Shia point of view. He did not acknowledge the Khalifate of anyone except Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu and his sons. May Allah Jalla Jalaluhu be pleased with both of them. With all of them in this sequence of Imams accepted by the Shias, and he referred to Ali as the rightful appointed heir of the Messenger of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. When he spoke of the Khalifates of Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman, may Allah Jalla Jalaluhu be pleased with them, he did not give them the title of Khalif. Rather, he said so and so took charge. He did not mention any of them without reviling him. He narrated bad reports about Aisha and treated other senior companions in like manner, narrating corrupt reports about Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu and also about Khalid ibn al-Walid radiallahu anhu, Amr ibn al-As and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. He discussed in a very negative light the meeting in which Abu Bakr was first given the oath of allegiance after the demise of the Messenger of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu alayka salawatullahi ta'ala alayka, claiming that it was a conspiracy to take the Khalifate away from Ali ibn Abi Talib, who is, in his view, was the rightful successor. His way of fabricating false accusations is typical of the way of his fellow Shia and Rafidis. It involves either fabricating the report altogether, adding something to the report, or quoting it out of context to distort its meaning. When he mentions the Umayyad Khalifa, the Khalifs, he describes them as kings. But when he mentions the Abbasid Khalifa, he calls them Khalifs. In his book Al-Buldan, he also calls their state the Blessed State, which is a reflection of his hypocrisy and practice of taqiyya, dissimulation. This book is an example of the deviation and distortion to be found in the writing of Islamic history, but it was used as reference by many Orientalists and Westernized Muslims who undermined Islamic history and the image of its figures. In fact, this book is worthless from an academic point of view. The first part of it mostly filled with stories, myths, and legends, and the second part is written from a partisan point of view. It is also lacking the simplest principles of academic authentication. Inshallah, we will end this one here at page number 242. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. تبارك اسم ربك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، سلام على المرسلين، الحمد لله رب العالمين.